Okay, so when we talk about sustainability, can we sustain where we're at? All right, imagine yourself in your bedroom for just a minute and think about all of the stuff that you have and all of the resources that go into making that stuff. Walk into your kitchen, imagine walking into your kitchen. You open your fridge, open the cabinets in there. Think about the food that's in there and the resources that are required to get that food into your kitchen and your fridge and your cabinet. So a lot of times we tend to live beyond our means, and not just financially. Credit cards, we swipe the credit card no matter whether we've got the money in the bank or not sometimes. But even with resources, as a whole, as a population, we have a tendency sometimes to live beyond our means. And so we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about sustainability next week. But for right now, what I want you to do is you're going to go ahead and close up your little vocab. And then I know mine's on a Post-it, but just write this on the outside next to sustainability. To increase sustainability, there are things that we can do. We can recycle. We can conserve water, carpool, pick up trash. To increase sustainability, there are some things that we can do. Aluminum is a non-renewable resource. Once we use up the aluminum that we have, we don't have any more. So how can we make that resource sustainable? Recycle aluminum cans, recycle aluminum products. Western part of the United States seems like it's always on fire. It seems like every time I turn on the news that there is some blaze raging over there in the West. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they haven't gotten a lot of rain. They don't have a lot of rainfall. They don't have a lot of moisture over there these past few years. They don't have a whole lot of ready sources to draw from. So they've got to conserve water. I don't understand why. I really wish it would take off. I don't know if you've seen, like in Arizona, their lawns aren't grass. Their lawns are basically a whole bunch of rocks and a cactus or something like that. You don't have to mow rocks. You don't have to water that. You don't have to fertilize that. You don't have to take care of that. They're rocks. Yay! I would love to have a lawn that's rocks and not have to mow and do that stuff. And that saves a lot of water. It conserves a lot of water because you're not trying to upkeep a nice green lawn. I really wish that would take it. All right, so this isn't a highlighter because we're using highlighters in other places. So just take a pencil, box in sustainability with your pencil, box in the information that we put for sustainability. All right, next, the law of supply and demand. Oh, there are some people that really want to read. If I run out, then I'll come back to you. Bailey really doesn't want to miss out on this.
The greater the demand for a limited supply of a product, the more the product is worth.
All right, supply and demand. You've lived through this. You've experienced this, whether you realize it or not. It used to be the law of supply and demand worked really well at Christmas time. So I don't know what the new thing is. I mean, I don't even know if it's still iPhones is the new thing because they're so prevalent. Back in my kids' day, it was like Tickle Me Elmo. Okay, so that was a big thing. Blues Clues toys. There'd be grandmas fighting in the aisles to get a Tickle Me Elmo for their grandchild because that's what they wanted. In my day, it was like Cabbage Patch Dolls. I remember, I don't even remember how old I was. I remember going to a store and seeing a couple of Cabbage Patch Dolls left, and there's people like arguing over what's left on the shelf over there on a Cabbage Patch doll. I got one because my grandma got it for me because she was probably one of them in the aisle. But she just, supply and demand. So if I'm a company and I'm like, hey, so Lego sets. Back in my day, Legos were just, coming out in these cool little sets and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've got this brand new Lego set, and I know people are going to go crazy over it. Well, there's a limited supply. I can only make so much in a certain amount of time. So if everybody wants it, they'll pay more for it. You can put $5 more on that because they're going to want to get it for their grandkids. And if I need to hire more people to make more Lego sets anyway, I'm going to spend more money, so I'm going to charge more for it. The more, the less that you have, the more the price tends to go up because there's more of a demand for it. On the other hand, it's 2020, Christmas 2022. How many of y'all want to Tickle Me Elmo? Okay, all right, so we got one. But here's the thing. If I'm a company that's making Tickle Me Elmos and I got 30,000 Tickle Me Elmos, Gracie's not going to buy all of them. So I'm trying to get, she might. So I'm trying to get rid of these suckers. I'm on the street corners, $5, $4.99, $4.99, $4.50. Get you a Tickle Me Elmo, right? Price is going to come down because they want to get rid of it because they don't want to lose all of their money for that. You lived through law of supply and demand not too long ago. So, pardon? Oh yes, but a really good example of it was say March, April 2020. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think the price went up on that, though. But price had a very big change in gasoline. So we're all quarantined. We're all at home. Hey, don't go anywhere. You can't even get out in your car and drive around. So you're stuck at home, and that's fine. That's great. But then nobody's driving around. Nobody's buying any more gasoline. So all the refineries are like, well, what do I do with all this? I've got all this stuff. What do I do with it? So the price drops way down. Hey, you can at least go out and drive around, come get gas. It's, just that. You don't have to touch anybody while you're there, So they're trying to lure people out so they can sell their product because they have all of this stuff and what to do with it. And so it was, I think at one point it even got below $1 in some gas stations. It was crazy low. Is that the same now? No, because all of a sudden we didn't have the supply, but we had huge demand. So now the price goes up. And that happens every year, too. About summertime, price tends to go up. First of all, it gets a little bit more expensive because of the additives they put in it. But in the summertime, everybody's going places. You're driving on vacation, so there's more demand for it, so the price tends to go up. So the more stuff that you have, the price tends to go down, so long as there is not a demand for it. If there's a higher demand, the price tends to go up because they can charge more for it. A lot of times it has to do with the fact that, it might cost more to make. So for the Lego sets, I got to make more. I need more people to make more. Or I have to buy more machinery. Or I have to buy more cardboard to put in boxes. So it's going to cost more somewhere. So that's where the price comes. Or it might simply be, if I'm the Tickle Me Elmo company and everybody wants it, well, I'm going to charge $100 for each Tickle Me Elmo. Why not? If you want it bad enough, you're going to pay for that, right? So it could be something that's not quite as honest as another situation. All right, Tragedy of the Commons. Read Tragedy of the Commons for me, please. Jacob. All right, and we're going to just skip that one for today because we're going to talk about that more in depth on Thursday. Biodiversity. Read for me the definition of biodiversity. Gracie. We're going to go into more in depth in that on Monday, so we'll just pause on that for just a minute. Pollution. Read pollution for me, please, Zach. Adversity. All right, and when we think about pollution, we usually think about smog in the air. We think about trash laying around, and that is pollution, absolutely. But there are a couple of other instances that we don't always think of, and we might be polluting our environment and not even realizing it. So big cities, lots of people in big cities. Big cities never sleep, right? There's always something going on. Lots of traffic, lots of construction, lots of machinery going on, lots of noise. Noise pollution is a thing. You can't have too much noise and pollute the environment. Big cities, or not even super big cities, McAlester itself even. So you want to see meteor shower, you want to see an eclipse or something like that. You might hear people say, hey, go out in the country, and you're going to get a better view of it out in the country. Well, that's because we don't have quite as much ambient light, reflected light and stuff like that. So light pollution is a situation as well. That's a thing too. So on the outside of your spiral notebook vocab sheet, go ahead and add a couple of examples of pollution. Light, noise, trash, You have air pollution, water pollution. Those are pretty well known. All right, this time you can use a second color highlighter, highlight pollution, box in your examples of pollution. We'll come back to biodiversity and tragedy of the commons later, so we can just hang on to that. All right, natural resource. Brooklyn, would you read natural resource for us? All right, so something used by us that's made by nature. Chances are you've already heard of renewable and non-renewable, yeah? Okay. Can you give me an example of renewable resources? What is something that can be replenished? What type of energy? Sure, solar is a renewable resource because we're going to get it tomorrow, the next day. What else besides solar? Okay, so water is a renewable resource, and I sometimes put that in air quotes because we have to watch our water sources. We've got to make sure that we don't contaminate them because they can filter through the environment, and we'll look at the water cycle and how it filters the water. But if we put a contaminant in there that the earth can't handle to filter it out, then we're going to ruin that resource. So we have to be careful. But yes, water, solar, pardon? Yes, sort of. Probably not in the way that you think. Geothermal is a renewable resource. Geo means earth and thermal means heat. So the earth is giving off heat. We don't feel it so much up here at the surface, but down underneath the surface, there's a lot of heat. And so there are several places where they've taken advantage of that. And they've run pipes down, and those pipes might carry water all the way down, and then they get heated by the earth. So you don't need to use electricity or power or anything. It's heated by the earth, and it comes back up, and it's either steam or it heats a house. So, yes, say that again. Sure. The gases around us. So plant and animal material, technically, also, that's going to be a renewable resource. We put some air quotes because we have to take care of it. We can't use it faster than it's able to grow again. We have to replant. We have to be careful with animal species. So, I mean, cows, we get beef all the time. So we have to be careful how we're using that resource and how we take care of their environment as well. So that could potentially be a renewable resource. Anything else? Sure. It kind of goes with the air one over there, but wind would be an example of a renewable resource. And one that we didn't talk about, hydroelectric. So hydro, what does that mean to you? Water, electric. So we can use the natural movement of water, run it through some turbines, make the turbine spin, and it's going to create electricity. Oh, let me do this first. So this is on the right-hand side page. You have your little table from the video at the top. So then write resources, and then we're going to have a little data table here, renewable, non-renewable. Just underneath, yeah. We've got one more thing that goes underneath there, so make sure you don't take up the whole space. So we talked about renewable resources already. We can go ahead and fill those in. Solar, wind, water, geothermal, hydroelectric, plants and animal material. You can add that to it. All right, non-renewable resources. Fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, coal, all of those things are non-renewable simply because, I mean, they're being made right now in some areas, I'm sure. The problem is it takes so long to create them that it's not like within a generation or in a lifetime. So trees might be within a lifetime. You know, hopefully we can, animals, you know, within a generation or something like that. So fossil fuels just take so long to regenerate that you might as well just say that you can't renew them. Metals, mentioned aluminum earlier. So how do we keep these resources sustainable? We conserve, we recycle when we can. Minerals. So there is a lot of minerals used in our technology, like silicone chips. And so that's a mineral that's non-renewable. So we have to be careful. I don't know if it's, you know, way past your generation, but way back in the day, television sets used to be like humongous. Did you ever have a TV in your room or in your house that was like as big as one of these tables or something like that? I mean, huge and weigh like 300 pounds. Like you can't rearrange furniture because that would mean moving the TV, and that's impossible. So back then, you know, you're done with the TV, you chunk it. It's either out in the yard or out in the dumpster or in the landfill or something like that. But nowadays, the flat screens that we have, LED, the components that go with that, chances are when you want to get rid of it, you take it to the recycling center because they're going to take it apart and take all the good stuff out of it that they can recycle before they get rid of the rest, because you don't want that going in a dump anyway because it's going to pollute the area. Species, so this is kind of animal material, but this is like if we're abusing things. So we get medicines from a lot of different plants. We have resources from animals. If we overharvest or if we're not taking care of that resource and they go extinct, then we don't have that resource anymore. All right, take another highlighter, third color highlighter, highlight natural resource, then use that same color to box in our little data table. All right, last but not least, Industrial Revolution. Gracie, since you're interested in reading, would you go ahead and read that real quick? This is our last one. All right, so before Industrial Revolution, we didn't have gas-powered stuff. We didn't have a lot of the inventions, the technology that we have now. After the Industrial Revolution, that stuff built up really fast. All right, so close your eyes, you're back in your bedroom again, right? Thinking about all the stuff that's in your bedroom. Not just thinking about the stuff now, but thinking about before the Industrial Revolution, could you have made that stuff by hand? So the clothing that you have in your closet, would you have that much clothing, clothes, shoes, stuff like that, if you had to make that by hand? I know my closet would have a whole bunch of those little flour sack shirts because I can't sew, right? All right, so you deal with what you have. Now you go into your kitchen, open the fridge, back up the cabinets, think of all the food that's in there. Would you have that food if you had to grow it, make it, raise it yourself? Back before the Industrial Revolution, the stuff that people had, the only stuff that they had was stuff that they made, maybe within their family. So they had to make their clothes. They had to grow all their food. I had a little bit of an experience with a garden. I used to garden, used to love to do that, have 10 beautiful tomato plants, and you get one tomato off of it. That's not going to feed a family, not going to feed a family for a whole entire year. People that raise cattle even. How much hard work goes into having to raise cattle and having to deal with that stuff. And so you might be like, oh, Mrs. Johnson, I wouldn't have to go to school or work. I'd stay home all day. Sure, you'd be at home all day. You'd be outside working on the farm, raising tomatoes and cattle and stuff like that so you could eat. Or you'd come in because it's dark out and now you got candlelight and you're sewing your little gunny sack shirt so you got something to wear. And the next day you wake up and you do it all again. After the Industrial Revolution, we were able to kind of consolidate things and group things together. So I can't sew, but Susie can sew. Oh, okay, well, then I would have used you, but now I'm going to go with Susie over here. So Susie can sew and make clothes, so Susie makes a whole bunch and sells them to other people. Industrial Revolution, we go from animals having to pull plows to John Deere tractors. So now we have a gasoline engine, and it works a lot faster, a lot more efficient, so we can make more food. So I can make a whole lot more tomatoes, trade tomatoes for clothes if you have to, or sell them to other people. The Industrial Revolution isn't just the inventions, like the cotton gin is always thought of for Industrial Revolution, train, gasoline engine, stuff like that. Yeah, sure. But there's also processes. So an assembly line process, that was developed in the Industrial Revolution. Roads, cross-country roads. Transcontinental railroad, a railroad that goes across the continent. Panama Canal, so now we don't have to take a ship all the way around, we can cut through. So these kind of things were developed during the Industrial Revolution to kind of help streamline, make things better for everybody. Problem is, now that we have these assembly lines, we have these factories, so now we have a whole bunch of people coming to the cities because we need employees to do all of this stuff. Overcrowded, overpopulated, lots of disease runs rampant because we don't have good setup for, sewage even at that time. So you have to develop that. You've got all these cars people have never driven with other people before, and so now we've got to develop traffic laws and make traffic lights and stuff like that because they're running into each other everywhere. So it ended up having additional problems from it, but it was still a benefit, and we keep rolling with it. I mean, think of the technology. Could you make an iPhone? Would you be able to get the materials to put that together? Do you drive a car? Would you be able to get the materials to put that together? So things before and after the Industrial Revolution are definitely different. So what I'd like for you to do, you can give yourself a few examples of some items that were developed from the Industrial Revolution. I've got a little video, and I'll throw it on here in just a minute so you can watch. Cotton gin, telephone, telegraph. We've got updated plow, the Erie Canal, railroads, Transcontinental Railroad. Thank you for reading out loud. 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 Get everybody. All right, when is your safety test? Tomorrow. This is the only test that you cannot use your spiral notebook for. So study your GHS symbols, other safety symbols, look over the safety contract front and back, read over those safety guidelines, read over the safety guidelines that we added